Loft 100 Studios, the Big Biz Show, and our affiliates and our hosts are not registered investment advisors or broker-dealers.
Our show hosts make no commitment that the purchase of securities of companies profiled or otherwise mentioned in our programming
are suitable or advisable for any person, or that an investment in such securities will be profitable in general.
Given the nature of the companies profiled and a lack of an active trading market for their securities, investing is highly speculative and carries a high degree of risk.
We profile
selected publicly traded and privately held companies on our program.
specific questions on comp and
Most of these companies that we profile have provided compensation to Loft 100 Studios and its hosts for the profile coverage.
From time to time, we sell shares of the companies profiled in the open market that we receive as compensation for coverage of client companies.
But never sell stock if we are speaking about, interviewing, or covering a public company who has paid us compensation.
specific questions.
Specific questions on compensation can be directed to producer@sullyentertainmentgroup.com.
Listeners should verify all claims and do their own due diligence before purchasing any securities mentioned on this program.
Investing in securities is speculative and carries a high degree of risk. We encourage our listeners to invest carefully and read the investor information available at the websites on the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC at sec.gov, or the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, FINRA, at finra.org.
Welcome aboard.
Hey there, live from Loft 100 Studios in sunny San Diego, California. Big Biz Show on the air. I'm Sully, your host. BigBizShow.com. Sully Speaks Money. And a very happy birthday to our Jared Coleman, our Emmy Award-winning director. Jared, can you put yourself up there on the screen? There he is. Hide all of the contraband while you're saying that there, bud. Happy 20th anniversary of your 15th year. I think you're 35, right? Are you 35 this year? Anyway, I've got a great story that I won't share with you on the air on how Jared started with this company. I'll just say one thing. He answered a Craigslist ad. So he didn't start at the top like he is now, but it's fantastic. Happy birthday, buddy. Best to you. My good friend Troy Hazard, who wrote the book, Future-Proofing Your Business, as well as The Naked Entrepreneur, joins us now. Also, he is one of the top keynote speakers in the country, as well as one of the best board members, CEOs that you can find. You can go to troyhazard.com. And we're talking about labor shortages or leader shortages. I think I know where you're going with this, buddy. How are you? Good to see you.
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Well, you know, you've been on this role for about, I don't know, the last 6 times on the air where we are open for business. Yet, are we open for, like, we're open, but are we ready?
Yeah, well, there's a bit of that. But I had this conversation on the weekend with some HR people, and they were saying, oh, there's huge labor shortage, et cetera, and it got me thinking, is it labor or is it leadership? Because at the end of the day, the simple rule is good people find good leaders. But when you look at the research, none of it speaks to that. It speaks to leaders saying, I can't find good people, can't find staff, can't find talent. But there's never any real research that surrounds the individual saying, well, why don't you have a job? Do you want a job? And why did you move or quit or change your mind anyway? There's nothing like that I can find. And I've spent another couple of hours on it this morning just trying to work out where this data lies.
But Troy, what do you say to the people that say to you, I just can't find good talent? I can find people, I can find a body, but I can't find good talent. And I don't know if that's COVID related or if it's related to the fact that there's no political will within the labor force to kind of go to work for somebody versus starting something on their own. What do you say to that?
Well, I think it all comes back to leadership, and for 2 main reasons. The first is, as leaders, we're always in a hurry. We're always too busy. So when it comes to interviewing people, we tend to rush through the process too much, and we interview 15 people for the same job. We get to the end of the day, we're tired, and we say, look, we'll just take Larry. He was the best. The guy at 3 o'clock seemed to have an idea of what we're trying to achieve.
So true.
He'll do.
By the way, meet Larry behind the camera here. No, but the interesting part of that is, because there's a fine line between doing interviews and searching for talent and paralysis by analysis, right?
Right. Right, there is, because you can go too deep and wonder what they had for breakfast in 1963, or you can actually find a formula that suits your business and your sector, but also second guesses you as a leader to make sure you're not cutting corners and just putting people in seats because you need to fill them.
Troy, I think your next book is right here, and I know you hate when I say that because I know you hate to write and you like to speak instead and take vacations starting in October of every year. But there is a labor gap that no one's talking about. Talk about that. That's really important.
There is, and so you can find the data on sectors where there's a gap of between 10 and 30% of available positions to available people. But I still ask the question, where are they? Are they at the beach? Have they gone to a different sector where they're not skilled to get a job? Have they left the country? Have they retired? There's not a lot of data that joins those dots for us to have us understand where these individuals are, because they're still here somewhere.
I'll tell you what I think. And you and I have talked about this as a co-host on this program, on your own program here on BizTV, Getting Down to Business. During the Great Recession, 2008, 2009, or as I call the Great Correction, we as small business people let people go. And what happened at labor force? Well, they either had to reinvent themselves, right? Or they either reinvented themselves by starting a new business or they got educated, okay? Now, down the road, a lot of those people didn't go back to work. They went and started new businesses. But even more, if I had 30 people here at Loft 100 Studios and went down to 16, I didn't bring 30 people back. I brought 18 people back. So we got better at less people. But a lot of those people, I think, reinvented themselves. Don't you think that's what's happening here post-COVID when they decided not to go back in the offices? They turned into consultants or they turned into, gig work?
Well, you'd certainly think that, and that's where I started. Well, have they gone out and decided they want to be an entrepreneur because they hate their boss? Back to the leadership story. Have they decided that it's their time because they were sitting around with enough time to think about it and maybe plan that strategy as to what that looks like when it grows up? I get all that, but I still can't see the data that relates back to small businesses opening. We've got 4.8 million closed through COVID, which is a chunk. That's almost 25% of the small business population closed their doors for good. I've not seen a bounce on that. And you'd think if they move from corporate America into being an entrepreneur, that somewhere in amongst that, you'd see a boom coming through on the numbers for small businesses getting out there, getting open and getting busy.
Well, I'll tell you what I think the reason is, Troy, is that first of all, that we gave out the PPP and we're starting to give out this tax shelter thing that you hear on the radio all the time. But if you think in terms of where the stimulus went, and we had too much stimulus, which is causing this inflation, but the stimulus didn't go to small business. It went to us, the people. Okay, and small businesses, as you know, Troy, are hand to mouth, just like most Americans are.
Absolutely.
They're 2 weeks away from going out of business if they don't get their next payables in, right? Or receivables in. So I guess the question has to be, where do they go? And if they went somewhere, is there labor loyalty? Will those people end up finding them eventually?
Well, that comes back to the leadership again. Ask yourself this question as a business leader and owner. Would you work for you? Now, you haven't got to answer that, Sully. You can take a moment if you like, just in case you're wondering. I
think we all know. I'm a horrible person to work for. I think a better question is, what's the value of my stock? That's a better question for me.
There's that. Would you work for that pay, that bonus, that benefit scheme, whatever in the business? Would you do that? And if you wouldn't, then you're likely not find the person that would likely want to work with you. It's pretty straightforward.
Well, and the other thing too is just like these businesses that were hand to mouth. If you lost your job, you're going to do anything it takes to go get food on the table and get the rent paid. So suddenly, you're sweeping floors, you're striping parking lots, you're doing whatever. You're reinventing yourself. So, and I think this is I think this is your next book, pal, because no one's talking about this labor gap because they're talking about unemployment rates. They're talking about hiring rates. They're not talking about the labor gap. Troy, I appreciate it. Troy Hazard, TroyHazard.com. Go check him out. Hire him at a very high rate to be a keynote speaker for you, and also pick up his books, Future Proofing Your Business, as well as The Naked Entrepreneur, available where all books are sold. Barnes & Noble. I used to think, it was Amazon, Barnes & Noble. I don't know, there's any bookstores anymore. So go to Amazon or go to his website. We'll figure it out. Thanks, Troy. Appreciate it. Big Biz Show continues. Stand by.
I met a strange lady. She made me nervous. She took me in and gave me breakfast. And she said, do you come from a land down under? Where women go and men wonder. Can't you hear the thunder? You better run, you better take cover.
I just want to make sure it was fun.
exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, cystic fibrosis, chronic pancreatitis, ulcerative proctitis, proctosigmoiditis, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease. If you've heard any of these words from your doctor before, you probably know this look and this feeling. First Wave Biopharma is a clinical stage biopharmaceutical company specializing in the development of targeted, non-systemic therapies for gastrointestinal diseases. Using frontline cutting-edge research, First Wave Biopharma is here to help you have less of this and more of this. First Wave Biopharma.
And so what are some of the pitfalls that maybe some businesses might run into when they're looking at distribution?
Yeah, they're constantly underestimating, believe it or not, the ease of it or the importance of it. It's execution. Execution is so very important, but if it's not on shelf, it's not for sale.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about Marion Roberts juice if it's not on shelf.
Right.
So distribution trusts us, and so does retail, and our team is incredible.